with America and the UK inviting Benny Gantz, which obviously upset Netanyahu, which was a snub to him, and Netanyahu literally being put on the fire by his own people. What do you think the
Yeah.
future holds for him?
Well, look, in terms of his coalition and the number of votes he has in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, Netanyahu still has a solid coalition. And so, there is still very little hope for the opposition to kind of topple him democratically. I think there are a lot of people in Israel and in Western capitals who would love to see Netanyahu go. But I think so far he's proven to be a very savvy politician who knows how to survive all of this. But I think also, more importantly for all of us, it's important to remember that Netanyahu is not the problem. It's not the person Netanyahu, right? It is the policies that Israel has taken over the past 30 years that have, progressively gone from center to right to far right. But the fact that the world has allowed it to do that, it has allowed it to more than, the number of Israeli settlers, for example, in the West Bank has gone from 100,000 to 750,000 in these past 30 years. So Israel has been allowed to do whatever it wants, basically, to get away with it all. And I think that is the problem. Netanyahu, of course, has a lot of the blame to share because he's been prime minister for so long. But I think it's an incomplete thought when we kind of put all of the blame on Netanyahu. He's not the only problem. There isn't a single big party in Israel that adopts the end of occupation in its political platform, not even the remnants of the Labour Party from the left. All of them have abandoned the two-state formula. All of them refuse to talk about ending occupation of Palestine, ending the apartheid they've imposed on Palestinians. And that's because the world has allowed them to do that. Once we see a shift in those international positions, like we saw yesterday with the Biden phone call, then Israel will fall in line because it cannot afford not to.
The whole world, I'm going to read a quote now. The whole world knows the Zionist regime does not adhere to any of the human principles, basic rights, international covenants, and contracts. That's Raisi, Iran. And as you know, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy.
Yep.
And they are threatening to revenge. They haven't done so yet. What do you think will happen? And if they were to revenge, will the Middle East support Iran finally and come together? No.
Yeah, I think what happened is very dangerous. Bombing a diplomatic mission in another country is what Israel did. And it's a red line that hasn't been crossed before, and Israel has crossed it. In a way, kind of putting the whole world on notice that it's ready to have a full-on deterioration in the entire region. And this is not the same. It's not in par with a confrontation with Hamas. Hamas is a small, Palestinian organization. Iran is a country, a sovereign state with a lot of resources, with a military industrial complex. A confrontation with Iran is certainly something completely different. And even with Hezbollah, in Lebanon. And I think Netanyahu, in order to stay in power and in order perhaps to kind of change the narrative and to have Israel placed in a more positive light and in the light of the victim this time, the one who's being attacked by the big bad boys of Iran, is pulling everybody's leg towards confrontation. It's reckless, it's irresponsible, and it can, turn into a complete disaster for the region and for the world at large, because it will have global implications. So far, we haven't seen that Iran took the bait, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will.